Tonight, Canadian condemnation over Russia's latest attack on Ukraine as hope for peace talks wane. The largest air attack on Ukraine strikes a government building.
I think the recent months are showing that this is the direction it's going.
What Canada's Prime Minister is saying about the fatal strike. The rising crisis facing duty-free shops as sales plunge.
Canadians are not going to rush back across the border just because there's a trade deal.
And the concern over this year's apple crop.
That we're open a full week early, that's really quite telling.
What's causing fruit to fall as some farmers fear for their profits.
CTV National News with Heather Butts.
Good evening. Canadian officials are tonight reinforcing their support for Ukraine after Russia unleashed its largest air assault, striking a government building in Kyiv for the first time. And among the people killed, an infant. While condemning what he called a brutal attack, the Prime Minister said a just and lasting peace for Ukraine will require robust and credible security guarantees. Last night's cowardly attack underscores the urgency of that mission. Mark Carney went on to reiterate Canada's commitment to deploy military assistance in support of upholding a ceasefire and lasting peace. CTV's Jeremy Sharon reports.
Billowing smoke covered the skies of Kyiv this morning. More than 800 Russian drones and missiles launched at the capital and across Ukraine in the largest air assault since the start of the war. Ukrainian forces say most were shot down. Government buildings were damaged in the attack. Apartment buildings were also hit. Officials say 4 people were killed and dozens injured. I'm an ethnic Russian myself. I've never thought my people would be capable of this, said this Kyiv resident. In a social media statement today, Canada's Foreign Affairs Minister Anita Anand called the attacks egregious, adding Ukraine's fight for its territorial integrity is also a fight for freedom and the rules-based international order that has kept us all safe since the end of the Second World War. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky also posting on social media that such killings now, when real diplomacy could have already begun long ago, are a deliberate crime and a prolongation of the war.
I'm not happy with anything having to do with that war. It's just such a waste of great humanity.
After meeting with Zelensky and Russian President Vladimir Putin last month, U.S. President Donald Trump set a 2-week timeline to get both leaders to meet and discuss a peace deal, a deadline which has now come and gone, with Russia only escalating its attacks since then.
I think the recent months are showing that this is the direction it's going. Putin feels emboldened by some of the support he's getting, feels that time is on his side.
Minister Anand says she spoke with Ukraine's Foreign Affairs Minister this morning and highlighted how Canada continues to support them through an oil price cap, sanctions, military, humanitarian, and financial aid. Heather?
CTV's Jeremy Sharon in Ottawa. A frightening scare for passengers on board a WestJet flight from Toronto as the aircraft experienced a hard landing, arriving at the airport in Saint-Martin in the Caribbean. It happened early this afternoon, the airplane tipping to one side and skidding down the runway at Princess Juliana International Airport. The airline confirmed all passengers and crew were evacuated safely and no injuries were reported. There is worry Canada may be leaving important environmental policies in the past. Since taking office, Mark Carney has cancelled the consumer carbon tax and this week paused the electric vehicle mandate, rolling back climate initiatives once set by Justin Trudeau. CTV's Colton Prale on where Ottawa's climate plan appears to be headed.
Climate-centric policies, once a hallmark of the Liberal government, are now being undone. And that's generating plenty of concern.
I think all Canadians should be concerned that this government is backtracking on climate action at a time when wildfires are still burning across this country.
Friday, Ottawa paused the 2026 target for 20% of vehicle sales to be electric and announced a review of the EV mandate. Mark Carney insists his government isn't stepping back from climate action, But when pressed, the industry minister would only clearly commit to Canada's 2050 net zero targets.
So we won't let go our climate goals, and we will continue to entice companies to develop clean tech solutions.
In a statement, the Environment Minister's office says Canada will provide an update on its emissions reduction plan as we strive towards our 2030 and 2035 targets. Canada has committed to reducing emissions by 45 to 50% compared to 2005 levels by 2035. But government models estimate it will only reach 24 to 38%.
Investment is...
The Conservatives are pushing Carney to go even further.
He's finally admitted that the Conservatives were right, just like we were right on the carbon tax. But he's doing a clumsy retreat.
Poilievre says Carney should drop Canada's industrial carbon pricing and the oil and gas emissions cap.
Mr. Poilievre is clearly not making climate change at all a priority. In fact, is moving policy from a Conservative perspective further away from things that might actually help solve the problem. And that maybe creates more space for Mr. Carney to continually differentiate.
Carney says elements of his climate plan will be announced through upcoming major projects, while a full competitiveness strategy will be unveiled in the coming weeks. Heather.
Thanks, Colton. CTV's Colton Prale in Ottawa. There's a new twist in the United States global tariff war. Appearing on NBC's Meet the Press today, the U.S. Treasury Secretary says the Trump administration would refund a large portion of the tariffs collected if the Supreme Court maintains they were implemented illegally.
Would you offer rebates, though? Are you prepared to offer rebates?
So we would have to give a refund on about half the tariffs, which would be terrible for the Treasury.
And you're prepared to give those refunds?
Well, I mean, there's no be prepared. If the court says it, we'd have to do it.
A U.S. federal appeals court recently declared that Donald Trump's use of reciprocal tariffs breached the president's authority. The White House plans to appeal that ruling to the Supreme Court. Those tariffs and ultimately the broader trade war with the U.S. making for a painfully slow summer for duty-free shops. At least one store has closed. CTV's Sarah Plowman on what's needed to save others.
Along New Brunswick's border with Maine, a long-standing duty-free shop is now shut. The owner felt he had no choice. Travel here is down, and so are sales.
I cannot continue to pay the bills when there's no money coming in.
Now, souvenirs sit on mostly empty shelves. Some items symbolize the U.S.-Canada partnership, but John Slip has watched that relationship fray.
This relationship is taking a long-term change. Canadians are not going to rush back across the border just because there's a trade deal.
For months, Canadian travel to the U.S. has plummeted. In July, return trips from the States by car dropped nearly 37%.
A lot of Canadians are just choosing not to go to the U.S. anymore. They're choosing to go to Europe, stay within Canada, or even internationally.
The association representing 32 duty-free shops warns more are on the brink of closure.
We've been calling it a crisis for a number of months now.
The owner of this duty-free shop says he could reopen one day, but only if there's significant change. Slip has been calling for government help like loan and rent deferral programs.
I have no revenue coming in. I'm still paying rent on the land. So that's a challenge in and of itself.
How much is your rent?
It's too much.
Last week, the Carney government announced help for businesses hurt by the trade war, including more liquidity. Duty-free stores are trying to learn what it means for them.
Yes, the liquidity will be helpful, but we also need some measures that we've been asking them for, some regulatory measures that will help us be more competitive with the United States.
Also important here is more certainty that travel will bounce back. And so for now, Slip's shop will stay closed until he's sure business will get better. Sarah Plowman, CTV News, Belleville, New Brunswick.
Not all sectors of the tourism industry are feeling the pinch. Coming up a little later in the show, how cruises are helping some parts of Atlantic Canada sail into economic success. At least one Atlantic province has been seeing a flurry of political promises lately, ones that often come when an election call is on the horizon. But as CTV's Garrett Barry reports, most major parties are not waiting for the official start, with some election issues already laid out.
a string of announcements by the governing Liberals.
Today marks the beginning of the implementation of a new child and youth community health model.
PC government will make the repairs to the fifth water bomber a priority.
And NDP
investigate what these power rates and to look at whether they are indeed justified.
Makes it clear Newfoundland and Labrador's next election campaign is unofficially on. The Not Quite campaign already has one important issue, the resignation of a committee member, giving independent oversight to the new mega hydro deal between Quebec and Newfoundland and Labrador. Michael Wilson said in a letter the panel's independence became impaired, and he wrote, "It appears the province is still preparing to sell power to Quebec for much cheaper than it could get elsewhere." That'll be a sticking point. This province has bemoaned the 1969 deal for how much Quebec benefited and how little Newfoundland and Labrador saw. Decades of resentment that this new agreement is trying to address. But opposition to the New Deal has been growing. This week, a group of critics, including former Premier Danny Williams, have increased their lobbying. Premier John Hogan predicts the deal will become the election issue, but it won't be with the help of the NDP, who say it's too important for politics.
And it is the wrong approach. We're going to end up going down the same path we did before, and it troubles me deeply.
There's one more thing this election needs, a voting day.
Oh, I wish I knew. If I knew that, then I'd know the 649 numbers and I wouldn't be too worried about the election at all.
There's still no official word on when voters will head to the polls. Garrett Berry, CTV News, St. John's.
The U.S. president receiving a mixed reception tonight in his hometown. A chorus of boos and cheers greeting Donald Trump today as he made an appearance at the U.S. Open. Trump flanked by several top administration officials as he attended the tennis tournament's final match. And in an open mass in St. Peter's Square, Pope Leo canonized the first Catholic saint of the millennial generation. Carlo Acutis was a British-born Italian teenager who died of leukemia in 2006 at the age of 15. Known to many as God's influencer, he learned computer code to create websites to spread his faith. Coming up, remembering the fallen.
He loved his job. He loved what he did. So we honor that.
The tribute to firefighters and the families sharing their immense loss with a nation. A somber ceremony in Ottawa this weekend as families from across the country gathered at the Canadian Firefighters Memorial, honoring their contributions to the health, safety, and prosperity of our nation. CTV's Josh Morano on the emotional ceremony.
The sound of bagpipes filling the air as families and friends honor and remember the loved ones they lost this year.
I'm here to honor my husband, Brian Coles. He was the love of my life.
For Betty Jane Coles, a somber day here for her late husband and son, both firefighters who died within just 6 months of each other.
I was hanging in there okay, but then, yes, the tears came, and I remembered both my son and my husband. Very stressful, but it's an honor to be here.
We truly feel that Sean was a hero. We do. Sean was only 50 when he lost his life, so he loved his job. He loved what he did, so we honor that.
Here with her daughter-in-law, Elaine, they joined families from across the country to mourn and remember the sacrifices made.
We lost our father-in-law, Brian, 6 months exactly to the day after Sean. So we're here to mourn with the rest of the families that are feeling the same as we are today.
The 22nd annual ceremony honors 140 firefighters who lost their lives in the line of duty or from occupational illness last year. Their names now etched on the memorial.
This is a wall that we used to think would take a long time to fill, and sadly we're getting it filled too quickly, and you know, it's presenting new challenges for us as for space to honor these heroes.
For the Coles, it's a day they say they'll hold in their hearts forever.
It's such a beautiful thing for the families to come together and
pay tribute to all the hard work that they've done, and it's all thanks to the people who organized this.
Josh Morano, CTV News.
An emotional and heartfelt message tonight from Angelina Jolie at the Toronto International Film Festival, and the lessons for all of us from her new film, Couture.
We can too often define others and define ourselves by our illnesses or those things about us that are broken, and we forget that they're also the ways we can learn or come back alive or fight through, that it's a choice.
Jolie stars as a film director who learns she has an aggressive form of cancer, a role that echoes her own journey. Jolie underwent a preventative double mastectomy in 2013 after learning she was at risk of the disease. Still ahead, growing concerns in PEI. Why an early apple season is not good news for farmers across that province. Some sky watchers getting a rare treat today, a blood moon, total lunar eclipse. A blood moon occurs when the moon passes through the Earth's shadow and it takes on a deep red hue. This eclipse lasted 82 minutes and was only seen in parts of the Western Hemisphere. The first signs of fall on Prince Edward Island are raising concerns. It's a little too early for some apple orchards. CTV's Maria Saru with more on the challenges facing apple farmers.
On the ground at Wintermore Orchard, workers are clearing what should still be hanging. Fallen apples fill the rows, and the farm's U-pick is starting ahead of schedule.
That we're open a full week early, that's really quite telling.
Back in the 90s, co-owner Mark Ashley planned for a warmer world, planting bigger trees to shade root systems and help retain soil moisture.
But if there's no water to start with, then there's nothing to save, kind of deal. So it's been a tough one.
Nearly 3 months of little to no rain, record high temperatures, and heat waves have stressed his trees. Some varieties drop early, but this much is unprecedented, he says. Thousands of pounds straight to the compost. In Nova Scotia, drought delayed apple picking, stalling fruit growth at some orchards. And it's affecting other crops too.
It will certainly impact the yield and quality of pretty much all the crops. And at the end of the day, that's going to impact the profitability of the farmers.
Agriculture and climate expert Adizaz Farouk says the data shows rainfall patterns have changed, likely influenced by climate change, with more downpours towards the fall.
I think we would need some early warning systems and forecasting down the road to see what we are getting into and how we can be better prepared.
Back on the farm, the fruit still tastes great.
Williams Pride is one of the varieties on offer at Wintermore Orchard this weekend, and there's plenty to pick. Maria Saru, CTV News, York, Prince Edward Island.
An orchard is a popular tourism destination in the fall. That season is still bustling in Atlantic Canada with a busy cruise ship schedule. CTV's Paul Hollingsworth on the influx of American visitors and what it means for locals.
The boardwalk on Halifax's waterfront is the top tourist attraction in Atlantic Canada. Typically, visitors start here and then travel throughout the region.
3.5 million people walk along this waterfront every year, and it keeps growing. But my gosh, they come here for Peggy's Cove, for the Bay of Fundy, for Anne of Green Gables, Cape Breton.
This Peggy's Cove restaurant is having its busiest summer ever, which fits the overall positive tourist trend in Halifax.
We were up a couple percent in June. We were up 5% in July. The numbers are still coming in for August.
The numbers are up largely because of the cruise industry, which brings more than 300,000 people to Nova Scotia each year. 60 cruise ships will dock in Halifax in September alone. Expanding the cruise schedule paves the way for a surge in visitors, and it allows tourism operators a chance to extend the season well past August.
It's gotten a little longer every year. This year it's extremely long, with the first arrival was April 4th, and the last arrival is scheduled for November 19th.
Domestic travel is also on the rise, with people choosing to spend their money in Canada instead of the U.S.
We also come to realize there's a lot of Canada we haven't seen yet.
A favorable exchange rate on the U.S. dollar means there's no shortage of Americans traveling north.
Loving it.
Yeah, started in Montreal and went up to St. Louis, all the way around Newfoundland.
Dennis Campbell was braced for a drop in U.S. visitation this summer.
I was very wrong. I'm very glad to be wrong. The American visitation is very strong. It's actually up.
One notable downside, there is a shortage in hotel room availability. But new facility construction is well underway as the tourism industry continues to reach record-breaking levels in Atlantic Canada. Paul Hollingsworth, CTV News, Halifax.
Still ahead, creating a passion project. How a mother-daughter duo are turning a new page in their relationship. A BC mother and daughter are embarking on a new chapter together as a rom-com writing team. Here's CTV's Adam Sawatsky on how this new adventure is strengthening their bond.
Well, it was not unusual for Kathleen and Raina Lawless to be watching a rom-com that day. How the mother and daughter responded to the movie was.
We thought, that was so clever. I wish we had come up with that.
After Raina casually came up with a far better plot, Kathleen made a formal invitation.
We could create a really great romance together.
Although Kathleen was a pro who'd had more than 60 romance novels published, and Raina's job was completely unrelated to writing, she accepted the challenge.
I felt like I really had to step up and kind of bring my A game to this.
The plan was for Kathleen to write a rough draft, Raina to make it more contemporary, and then email the chapters back and forth until they were both satisfied.
It was very frustrating.
The mother and daughter worked differently. Kathleen wrote quick, Raina was contemplative, and then, after taking 9 months to finish it all, the test readers felt it was flawed.
I took it hard.
And finding the courage to take the next steps were far from easy.
It's like ripping out knitting and starting all over again.
But through rebuilding their book together, Kathleen and Raina learned to not just appreciate each other's differences, but capitalize on them.
And then the result is this product that's the best parts of both of us.
So, instead of listing both their names on the book's now published cover, they came up with one pen name, Carissa Harper. And the early feedback for Cupid Grants a Second Chance is first rate.
Multiple people saying, I couldn't put it down. I'm tired at work today because I stayed up late reading last night.
While the plot follows a TV producer who creates a reality show that reconnects people with love interests from their past, this mother and daughter are looking forward to working together again in the near future.
I feel like the luckiest mother in the world.
And we've created something neither of us could have done without the other.
Adam Sawatsky, CTV News, Saanich.
That is our newscast. I'm Heather Butts. For all of us at CTV National News, thank you for watching. Omar and Sandy will be here tomorrow. I'll see you again on Friday. Good night.
CTV National News, Canada's #1 newscast.